just because you're in a position of authority does not mean that you're a leader. Leaders get results through people. Managers get results through tasks. So everybody is a leader at some point.
Yeah.
You're listening to the Limitless Leadership Podcast, the podcast designed to help automotive repair shops learn how to lead, coach, train, and manage their team better by sharing proven techniques and thought-provoking interviews from industry leaders. Are you ready to transform your leadership skills by tapping into unrecognized potential to achieve limitless results? Let's get ready for liftoff. It's time to go from great to greater. Here's today's episode.
All right, leaders, whether you're running a shop, leading a team, or leveling up in your career, you know details matter. And if you're like me, that includes keeping your beard on point. That's why I trust the Bearded Brotherhood. Their beard oils, beard balms, and mustache waxes, among other, are made with all natural ingredients, no junk, no shortcuts, just top-tier quality that keeps my beard looking sharp and feeling great. And let's talk scents. Whether it's their best-selling Woodsman or my personal favorite, Lone Stranger, the Bearded Brotherhood keeps me smelling fresh and my beard stays soft all day. If you take your beard game seriously, this is the stuff that you need. And because you're part of the Limitless Leadership podcast family, I've got a deal for you. Just visit thebeardedbrotherhood.co/lead15 to grab your favorite products and get 15% off in the process. Because a great leader deserves a great beard. Now, back to today's episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Limitless Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Parnell. And before we get started, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, do all the things you need to on social media, and go to YouTube at The Bearded Leader to hit subscribe and help us reach people and build leaders. That, of course, is our mission statement, to reach people and build leaders. And speaking of leaders, I'm joined by, yet again, another great leader, a friend of mine. He is a John Maxwell certified leadership coach, trainer, speaker, a business owner, Jeremy Hoyum. Jeremy, thanks for being here.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Super fantastic.
Excellent. Well, Jeremy, before we get started, share with the audience who you are, what you do, and how you do it.
All right. Well, I just say I'm a normal guy.
I beg to differ.
Well, I've been in my industry, which is a little bit different than the one you guys are in, but it's the family entertainment industry. But the way I tell people is business is business. The widget's different. Systems and processes are different. But leadership is the same across every organization.
Yeah.
Business is the same across every organization. So you just plug and play the widget in the processes and systems, and everything else works the same.
Yeah, very good.
So I've been in the family entertainment industry for about 30 years. And I tell people the only other real job I've ever had was jumping out of planes in the Army a long time ago. So that makes me 2 times crazy.
Thank you for your service, by the way.
Hey, everybody is worth it. So I tell people that it's weird for some veterans to hear the thank you for your service, but somebody said one time that you're worth it. And I was like, that's great.
That's awesome.
So
awesome. Okay, so jumping out of airplanes back then, 30 years in the family entertainment industry. Talk to us about what that journey has been like and really what led you to where you're at today.
Okay, so I've held every position in the industry that you can imagine, from frontline worker to supervisor to assistant manager to general manager, multi-unit manager, corporate bigwig. I was a senior vice president of operations for a $600 million family entertainment center brand. And then owner. I've been owner of multiple businesses, and currently I own 2 and 3 businesses.
Okay.
That's actually 4 if you include my coaching.
That's right. Yeah, that is
right.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
So for those listening, of course, the majority of the audience with the Limitless Leadership Podcast is in the automotive repair space. We are actually live at the Sunrise Automotive Training and Expo in Chandler, Arizona. And so I had the opportunity to meet you. It's pretty cool how we got connected, because we have a mutual friend who was telling me about this great guy named Jeremy who does all these amazing things. And he was like, dude, I got to introduce you to my friend Jeremy. And then a week later, I was at the Tools Conference in Pennsylvania, and Lucas Underwood was talking to me about a friend of his and a coach that he knows. And the way he described this individual, I'm like, man, that sounds exactly like the guy that my friend was telling me about a week ago. And small world, but it is the same guy. It's you, Jeremy. And it's funny how God works. And here we are at this conference, meeting in person for the first time. And man, so far we've had we had an incredible conversation right before we went live on this episode. But I want you to share with the audience really what got you into the coaching space. There's a lot of alignment with things that you shared with me earlier, but what got you in the coaching space and yeah, period. Yeah, I guess question mark rather. Go ahead.
Right. Well, I mean, I guess kind of have to go way back, right? And first I will tell you that my philosophy is that there is such a void in quality leadership across every imaginable organization. The most cursed in this area, I would say, is the family. 90% of our problems as a country, in my opinion, have to deal with the fact that our families are broken, right? Men are not allowed to be men or are choosing not to be. So there's a specific type of leadership that we're called to be in that space, and that's broken. You go to any type of business unit, there's broken leadership. Military, there's broken leadership.
Yeah.
There's, nonprofit organizations, churches. The void in leadership exists at such a huge space that there's a need for it, right? And I believe that leadership is a skill that can be learned.
Preach.
And unfortunately, we don't teach it, or we rarely teach it, or if it is taught, it's taught poorly in a lot of spaces. And the way that most people get put into a leadership position is they're good at their job, right? They're good at a task.
Yeah.
And so we throw that person who's good at the task and a next man up mentality into a space without training them to be a leader.
Yeah.
And then they fail, and then that leader gets fired. And then not only do we lose another leader, but we also lost our best performer at the same time. And so I'm on a goal, or my passion is to let's teach people how to be leaders and how to not just be leaders, but quality leaders. And so we can start to fill that gap, and we really need to push that down towards the younger generation, so that we're already in a vacuum of need, and we're never going to get ahead of it if we don't start with the youth and kind of head in that direction. So for me personally, that started a long time ago, and I had a lack of leadership in multiple areas of my life that were super impactful. My family unit was a mess. I grew up, both my parents were alcoholics. My dad was bipolar. At a young adult age, he overdosed and passed away. When I was 18, I ran away from the home. Not literally ran away, even though I did do that once. That's a story too. But joined the military, which became my new family. It was merit-based, and I knew where I stood, and I liked that my effort and my attitude was rewarded. Unfortunately, I was in the military. I was stationed in the DMZ up in Korea, and I ended up getting malaria. I got really sick. I was sick for 2 years before they figured out what was wrong with me. And for any of you guys who know the military, they thought I was faking, and so I was treated pretty poorly for 2 years. They thought I was faking it, so it was damaging psychologically for
I
2
can imagine.
years.
Yeah.
Once they found out that I had malaria, and there's a big story behind that too, but how it all happened, how they found out. But my commander had to come and apologize to me. It was a half-hearted apology, but
he had to.
He had to.
Yep.
Ended up having more complications from it and was medically discharged from the military. And so my new family didn't want me anymore either. And so it was a struggle, and I buried it. And, you can't kill me, so I'm going to keep going and working hard. And another significant thing happened, and I was in a family entertainment center, and incident happened. I got canceled on the internet, and it was awful. Had an incident with a guest. I ended up giving a refund to the guest. They left. Lady lost her child. Came up to me and screaming and yelling like moms should do when they lose their children. And she said, somebody stole my kid out of my arms. And I was like, okay, calm down. Tell me exactly what happened. And she said, I turned around and my kid was missing. So it was 2 different stories. I couldn't get anything else out of her. I assumed the worst and locked the facility down. And found the kid in less than 4 minutes, was never lost, had walked away with grandma. You know, it was one of those things that nothing really happened.
Sure.
I'm very security minded because I was obviously in the military. And so this was a 100,000 square foot facility. So I wanted to go physically see the child with the mom. When I did, I knelt down next to mom, intentional body language. I wasn't standing over because she was sitting down, and intentional tone of, ma'am, in the future, if something like this were to happen, if you could take a deep breath and give us as much information as possible, it's going to help us find your kid quicker.
Sure.
Right.
When emotions are high, logic is low.
Yeah. She could not even tell us what color clothes her kids were wearing or anything like that. Right.
Frantic.
She lost her shit. Like, she don't tell me how to act when my kid was missing. Why are you yelling at me? I want a refund. I was like, okay, crazy lady, here's your refund. Go ahead.
Yeah.
See you later. So later that night, one of my managers that worked for me called me. He's like, hey, just so you know, that lady made a video out in the parking lot. And she uses your first and last name like 5 times in the video.
Oh, wow.
My name tag only had my first name on it, so I have no clue how she got my last name. I was like, whatever, no big deal. It's going to fly over. You know, next morning he calls me. He's like, hey, 10,000 people have seen this video, just so you know. It's like, still no big deal. It's going to fly over. And I wrote a formal report to the current owners. I didn't own the business at that time. And said, hey, guys, this is just, so you know what, this is what happened, right? And they laughed about it. And I have a reputation for being the calmest guy under pressure.
Yeah.
And by noon, 100,000 people had seen the video. In 2 weeks, 3 million people had seen the video, and hundreds of people called trying to get me fired. I had death threats online. I had to disappear for 2 weeks, and it broke me. So I went and got counseling at that time that I needed, you know, just dealing with all my prior stuff. So it was one of the best things that ever happened to me. Like, is that
blessing in disguise?
That thing that broke me to go get the help that I needed.
Yeah.
Since then, my life has kind of skyrocketed, and I have my eyes open to that. I've been through tough things, and those tough things, I can help other people be through tough things. And that's a form of leadership, you know, to have the desire. I believe that anybody who's going to be a quality leader needs to have a servant's heart, and to have that desire to want to help people. That kind of spearheaded that I'm going to focus on being the best leader that I can be, so that the people who work, they can be the best version of themselves.
Yeah. I mean, when the leader gets better, everyone gets better. You're really speaking my language, Jeremy, and I appreciate you sharing that. And thank you for giving that backstory as well. You know, you talked about the transition into leadership, and what we see, especially in this industry, we see a lot of high-performing team members who do really well at their job. They've mastered these processes. Let's call it let's use a service advisor for an example. They're a service advisor who does a really good job. So they get promoted to a formal leadership role, a service manager, but they've never had any leadership coaching and training. And it's like going from a player to a coach.
Right.
And we see a lot of these players go from player to coach, and they struggle with staying in the coach's seat because they don't know how to coach. They know how to play.
So their comfort level is playing, and a lot of times they end up going to their comfort level.
Yes.
Which is focusing on the one thing that they're good at, when they're accountable and responsible for the entirety of the game.
Well, and so they were managing processes, and now they're leading people, and that's the difference. You're going from a manager of a process to the leader of people, and when they jump out of that coach's seat, they're stunting everyone's growth and development, including their own.
And the business.
Right. So talk to the shop owner or to the advisor or the manager or technician, whoever. Talk to the crew in the shop about what it looks like to effectively transition and how important coaching is that comes along with the transition.
I think coaching is important for development anywhere, at any level, not just in a leadership level, but in a technician's level. Like, how can I be a better technician?
Sure.
There's people that should coach you. And a lot of times those coaches should be within the inside of your organization. And if you have your core values set up right, you should have teams that have the desire to mentor each other.
Yes.
And whoever that new guy is on the team, you want them to be successful because that allows you to be a different level of successful. So it's kind of starts with that foundation of, okay, we have the attitude where we actually have each other's back and we want each other to succeed, or are we in a position where it's hey, you figure it out on your own? But I would also say that we make the mistake of assuming we need to promote that leadership from within, because that's not always the case. And we have a desire to want to do that because we think that leadership role means moving up in the world, right? It's a step up, where a lot of times it's another responsibility, and everybody's role is important, right? So sometimes somebody wants to move up into a leadership position because they think it's the next step of success.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
Next rung on the ladder.
Whereas your calling, because not everybody has a calling to lead, right? But your calling may be to be the best technician that this industry has ever seen. And that's okay. But how do I be better at that? How do I make more money doing that? How do I support my family by doing that?
Yeah. It's the current assignment that they have.
Right.
And what we know is that this assignment that you have right now, it may not be your final assignment, but we know that the size of your assignment doesn't dictate the significance of your impact. You can make an impact in the seat that you're in, the assignment that you're in.
But so people make a mistake. I think owners, or depending on the level of leadership that you're at in an organization. So some leaders may be responsible for hiring other leaders, and you might not be all the way at the owner position. But they make the assumption that they should promote from within, which if you have the ability, that's fantastic. If the right person is ready for that, fantastic. Do it every time.
Yeah.
Because you have more buy-in. There's a lot less training that has to happen because they understand the culture and everything from the get-go. But if you don't have that right person, you have to go on the outside. And a lot of times that takes more work. It takes a lot of effort. And one of the things that leaders struggle with is we've never been taught how to hire a leader either. What are you looking for?
Yeah.
Like I know in my industry, and it's probably pretty, it probably crosses industries, but I know in my industry, what I'm specifically looking for in a leader in one of my buildings is that one, a leader has to have a servant's heart, right? If you don't have a natural desire to want to help people, this business is going to chew you up and spit you out. In my industry, we have a lot of teenagers that work for us, right? So a lot of young people, first-time jobs. And so if they don't have a natural desire to want to mentor young people, they're not going to be successful, because 90% of our success happens through the work of those 16-year-olds. And if you don't have that desire to want to mentor them, you're not going to do what it takes to connect with them. If you don't connect with the 16-year-old, they're not going to follow you through the fire, right?
Yeah, that's so good.
Next couple ones come from a book called The Ideal Team Player, Hungry, Humble, Smart.
Yeah,
right?
Patrick Lencioni.
Yes.
Okay.
So hungry has to do with you. Do you have a win the day attitude? Do you want to wake up every day saying, I'm going to win the day, even when you know you're not always going to, but can you get punched in the face and get up again tomorrow?
Yeah.
Right. Humble is not about being timid or meek, but it's about the understanding that I always need to learn. I always need to be a better version of myself for my team and for my business. And smart has less to do with cognitive ability, while that's important. It has more to do with emotional intelligence.
Preach.
Right?
Yeah.
Can you read the room? Do you know, when it's appropriate to banter with a guest or a customer, and when it's not? I give the example of, I have a guy that I work with who's a veteran, right? And when he screws something up, I can look at him in the face and be like, what the hell is your problem? You're an idiot, right? And we can have a conversation, work through it, and move on. But if I choose to communicate the same way to somebody else, I could crush their spirit and potentially lose a great staff member because I chose to communicate in a way that they couldn't receive.
Well, and you're describing situational leadership, which is when we're adapting to the needs of the situation and the needs and the abilities of those that we're leading. And I like that you just shared the humble, hungry, smart. My own suggestion or coaching that I offer is how to hire your CIA team member, people who are coachable, intelligent, and who have the right attitude.
Right.
And the I for intelligent is just that. It's not necessarily book smarts. It's the emotional intelligence. It's recognizing how to exercise empathy. In this industry especially, we got to exercise empathy. Trust me. Like
Nobody wants to see you guys.
Well, and everyone wants to see you guys, right?
Right.
Everybody wants to go to the family entertainment.
You would think.
part.
I've got stories for days.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, I had a birthday mom throw a cash register at me in Connecticut.
Wow. Okay.
I've been hit by a car. I've been spit on probably 15 times over my career in the industry. Craziness happens.
I'll tell you what,
places.
Jeremy, you are resilient, man. Like you are resilient. Those stories, plus just the malaria situation in the military and getting canceled. I mean, there's a spirit of resilience about you. How important is resilience for a leader and in a leadership role?
I can't remember exactly where it's at in the Bible, but it talks about how trials create endurance.
Okay.
Right? And endurance gives you the ability, that ability to endure gives you the chance to have positive come out of negative. So I'll give you an example. I got to speak to a bunch of foster kids here in Arizona. I think it was like 300 kids 3 or 4 years ago. And I know for a fact that everybody looks at those kids and they tell them that they're victims, right? And that statistically, life's going to suck for you, right? And there's a little bit of truth to the potential of that for them. But when I was speaking to them, I wanted them to know that you are lucky in a certain aspect. You don't feel it now and you don't know it now, but you're lucky because you've been through the fire at a young age.
Good point. Yeah.
Most people don't start going through the fire until their late 20s, 30s, whatever that is, right? But you've been through the fire at a young age. And so you've got an advantage, a tactical advantage over other people, other peers because of that. You've already know that life's not fair. Mm-hmm. You already know that nobody's going to give you anything and that you have to work for everything that you're going to get, right?
Foundationally, they're set up.
Foundationally, they know
more
that.
than,
Now, there's a caveat to that. If you choose a victim mentality, you're not going to take that lesson from there, right? But that endurance piece of going through that fire, when I was giving this presentation, I had a video behind me. It was a YouTube video. I'd like to create mine someday for this, but and this guy had this beat up old pipe wrench, right? It's greasy and old, and it looked like it probably came out of one of your guys' shops, right? And he put it in the fire, and then he took it out of the fire, and then he took the hammer and he started hitting it, right? And then he put it in the fire, and he took it out of the fire, he started hitting it. And at the end of the presentation, it showed that this guy took this beat up old, quote unquote, useless wrench or piece of material, and it turned into a beautiful, useful knife, right? And so the story behind that is that when you go through the fire,
that's it,
and you get taken out and you do the work, that work is the pain of being pounded, right?
Yeah.
And then you do it again. The more you do that, the more refined, and the Bible talks about the refining, right?
Yeah.
The more refined you become. And so, but what happens if you put that piece of metal in the fire and you take it out and you do nothing with it? And then you put it back in and you do nothing with it. At the end, you've got a burnt piece of crappy, useless metal.
Yeah.
And so I believe it's an advantage, and that I've learned, I didn't feel this at the time, right? But I'm old now. But I've learned that
You're
that
wise.
Fire, right, leads to opportunity to be better. And so that endurance piece, if you can endure the hard things and just keep putting one foot in front of the other. And one of my mantras as a young person, I don't even know where it came from. I was just very, very lucky that tomorrow's a new day. No matter how bad today sucks, tomorrow's a new day. And as a leader, you're going to have a lot of bad days because everybody wants to be a leader, but they don't understand the weight that comes with being responsible for everybody else.
Yeah.
And it's a blessing because there's great things that come with it at the same time, but there is a reality of burden's the wrong word because it's a negative thing, but there is a weight of the everyday. Your job is to solve problems.
Yeah.
So problems come your way.
It's a big responsibility.
Right.
We know that not every day is going to be a good day, but we can still find the good in every day. A lot of what you're sharing is really the battle that we need to face in between the years. Mm-hmm. It's the concept of beliefs and potentially limiting beliefs. And one of the greatest mistakes any of us can make is assuming all of our thoughts or beliefs are actually true. How does someone shift a paradigm, shift a perspective? We know that perspective, the way that we view things, drives the way that we do things. For the shop owner or for the team member who is struggling to shift their perspective and see the good in things and see the blessings that could come from these quote unquote burdens, for lack of better terms, how do we shift that perspective? How do we reshape that paradigm?
There's a couple things that I would say would help with that. I mean, one of the first would be that I don't like social media. Like, I am not a fan, and I know that podcasting and everything, that's part of it, and it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
But I think it creates an environment where we're comparing ourselves to everybody all the time, and that comparison is not healthy. You see a snapshot of perfect for somebody else that is not perfect, and they have just as much struggle and pain and issues as you do, probably more because of the lifestyle that they're choosing, right? Mm-hmm. But the shift happens when, sometimes you need help. Like for me, counseling, because I told you earlier that I paid a lot of money to learn that your feelings lie to you, right? And as a leader, there's a lot of emotions that come and go with you're mad, you're frustrated, you feel let down, because you're going to feel let down by people, right? When you're in a leadership position. And really focusing on the truth or the data of what's present. So searching for the truth and constantly being in a search for truth. And it doesn't have to be some philosophical greatness that you're searching for, but just the truth in the situation.
Yeah. We'll find evidence in the things that we believe, right?
Right.
We'll find,
You'll find the evidence. But when you actually search for the truth and you can have those difficult conversations with yourself, because that's where a lot of leaders fail, is they won't be honest with themselves about how much of this did I own that I didn't do the right thing.
That's so good.
And so once you see the actual truth and you can separate your emotion from it, it allows you to shift what the reality is. You understand the reality is, and then you can do something different to get to a different reality.
Emotional maturity is having feelings, but not letting our feelings have us. Mm-hmm. And that is something that has taken me years to really, I don't even want to say master, because I know I haven't mastered it, and I probably will never master it, but it's something I'm mindful of. I want to go back to something you shared earlier, and especially because you are a veteran. I know your time in the military, you witnessed the same thing I saw as a fellow veteran, and that is this positional leadership. Mm-hmm. In the military, it's very much of a positional leadership type of approach, whereas you and I both believe in the term servant leadership, and how there's a difference. With positional leadership, you got a boss and an employee, and the employee reports to the boss, and the boss tells the employee all what they need to know and do and say and all the things. With servant leadership, we're changing that verbiage around. Boss becomes leader, employee becomes team member, and we're then going to flip that script 180 and have the team member at the top of this visual. And again, if you're listening to this episode, I'd encourage you to go to YouTube at The Bearded Leader, and you can watch this episode. But you now have team member at the top, and the leader on the bottom becomes servant leader, because you and I both know the servant leader is pouring into and investing in and growing and developing and really supporting and guiding this team member to grow and develop, because the ultimate job of a leader is to develop other leaders.
Correct.
Speak to the individual listening right now saying, I don't even view myself as a leader. How am I going to grow and develop other people as leaders?
So first I would tell you that just because you're in a position of authority does not mean that you're a leader.
Say it for those in the back. Come on, Jeremy.
Yeah. For real though, just because you're in a position of authority does not mean that you're in a leader, a true leader. And I'm a huge John Maxwell fan, right? He's got 100 books out there for you to read, right?
What's your favorite? He's got
Jesus,
right?
I have so many of them, but Jesus High Road Leaders is one of those most recent ones out last September. Okay. And so I really like that book. But he has the 5 levels of leadership, right? When it's positional and so on and so forth, right? Specific to the military, the brokenness of leadership exists in every organization. They actually teach you how to be a leader in the military, and I'm sure you've heard of the book and have experienced this firsthand. Leaders Eat Last.
Simon Sinek.
So there is a tradition in the military for quality leaders where leadership eats last. You eat based off of rank. That's a literal, not a figurative thing. That's a literal thing.
That's right. Yeah.
You go to the field and you've been out there for 3 weeks, and I know you Air Force guys don't really know what that means.
You mean Air Force?
When you're in the woods sleeping in the dirt for 3 weeks,
Yeah.
and they bring food out. The privates eat first, and then the specialists, and then the NCOs, and then the officers, right? That is the way they do things. And there's an intention behind how they did that, because it's supposed to be the mindset of you take care of your people before you take care of yourself.
Yeah.
There's a place where that tipping point gets awkward and not healthy.
Agreed. Yeah.
Us as fathers sometimes cross that line where we are so worried about taking care of our families financially, we don't take care of our health. I've been guilty of that forever. You can't be a great father if you're not healthy. You can't be the best version of a father if you're not healthy. Good. And so I'm on that road personally. A year and a half ago, I weighed 315 pounds. And so I'm on that road to getting healthy because I had to shift my mind.
Yeah.
So, but in the military, specifically speaking about that, you get those people who speak only from authority, and they have to bark, and they have to lean on their authority to get results from people. John Maxwell says that leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. Yeah. Okay. And so you can, to kind of bring it back to that person who says, I'm not in a position of leadership. You are a leader no matter, everybody is a leader at some point.
Yeah.
So let's say that you're the lowest level technician that's in a business, okay? And then 2 months from now, a new person comes in and you're no longer the lowest level. That new person is going to look up to you of how do things work around here, what's okay, what's not okay, what are your systems, your processes. You are influencing them. That is a form of leadership. Now, the intensity, the scope of responsibility of leadership, all of that changes depending on your position with the company. But how you choose to behave and adding value to others is what truly defines whether you're a leader or not your level of authority.
So John Maxwell's definition of leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. Correct. I'll ask you, what is Jeremy Hoyum's definition of leadership?
Well, he's way smarter than I am, so I go with that.
Sure. I understand that. I mean, it's a great definition.
And at the end of the day, I'm just a dumb infantry guy. Like when I teach people,
I'll say if I just straight up ask you, like, what does leadership mean to you? Like, what, in your own words, what would you say?
So it's probably a very long conversation, but for me, it's so my job as a leader is to get the best out of you, right? So leaders get results through people. Managers get results through tasks.
Say that again.
Leaders get results through people. Managers get results through tasks. So you in the world of leadership coaching and stuff like that, and you hear people talk about, I want a leader or I want a manager, right? And managers manage tasks, leaders get results through people. Mm-hmm. The reality is you have to be both as a leader. So the leadership side is the most important piece, but you also have to have the skill set of management, or else business doesn't happen. Sure. You don't make money in a business. And so I think a lot of people most people focus too much on management because they're so focused on dollars and cents.
Yes.
They forget to focus on leadership, which is on culture and getting results through people. And so your business will fail if you're too strong on either side. If you're too strong on the management side, then you have short-term results. You'll get short-term good results financially possibly, but you're going to have a high turnover and you're going to have a lot of churn and you're not going to get a lot of future growth. If you're too high on the culture and leadership side, where it's only culture-based, then you don't get the systems and processes done, so you don't make any money. And so it has to be a combination of both that's healthy in order to get maximal results through the organization or the business that you're running.
So good. So you have a wealth of knowledge, years of experience. I'll ask you, what is the best advice you've ever received from a coach or a mentor?
It's actually in the form of a question. And so my mentor, simple sentence, when I'm questioning things or I'm making an assumption, because it's really easy when you're in a leadership position and you're not getting something you need from somebody to make assumptions. And she would say to me, what else could be true?
That's a strong question.
It's a very strong question. What else could be true? Because when we're so certain of something, we need to be careful. Because one of the things that I teach in culture, right? Because I love to teach culture and how to create a positive culture and why it's important, and then how to couple that with purpose. It's really great. And so one of my core values that I teach is that we assume the best and we choose not to be offended.
That's so good.
Okay? And so we live in a time where everybody races to see who can be the fastest offended, most offended, right? And
that offends me.
I know. One of the things that I teach, everybody says, I want to change the world, right? Everybody says it. You know how you do it? One interaction at a time. So what we don't know, and so like I told you about all those people that spit on me, and like I teach 1% of the population. Somebody else said that downstairs yesterday. There's 1% of the population that doesn't know how to behave. Okay. I will tell you, I think it's 3% in Connecticut. Don't like that state. That's where the lady threw the cash register.
Random shot at Connecticut.
Yeah. I spent a lot of time in Connecticut. So you think about it on volume. I don't know what the volume is through one of your shops, right? But on the volume, and again, you guys are a little bit different because you guys, nobody's happy to come see you and spend money on a broken car, right?
A lot. Yeah, that's right. We get to create a positive buying experience, but
Absolutely.
it typically doesn't start with like, I can't wait to go spend money in automotive repair
Even if it's
shop.
not you, they're frustrated.
That's right. Yeah.
There are very few people that are disciplined enough to have a budget
Yeah,
set
it's a budget,
aside
that's right.
for car repairs.
Yeah.
So it's always a sad day when you have to spend $1,000 that you weren't planning on spending, right? Yep. And so we would have 100,000 people come through the building in a year, let's say. And if 1% of the population doesn't know how to behave, that's 1,000 people that are irrational.
Oh.
And so if you don't have the mindset of, hey, 99% of everybody that comes in here loves what we do.
Yeah.
1% of the population is crazy. That 1% starts to feel like 5%.
Yeah.
And my guess is in your space, my guess would be that you have leaders who start to put that wall up expecting a fight, and they approach that guest experience defensive to start with.
It's unfortunate, but it's true. And what we know is that there's 1,440 minutes in a day. But we will sometimes allow a 1 or 2 minute interaction to ruin, quote unquote, ruin the rest of the day. And it's unfortunate because what you're describing, it's the exception.
Right.
It's an anomaly, and
Right.
it's the 1%ers. But being able to understand that, and then what was the question? And understand that, and then ask yourself, hey, what else could be true?
What else could be true? And then also as a leader, we have to coach that's the 1%, because our team.
Yeah.
So if we lead with that wall and that aggressiveness towards our guest, right, or our customer, then the people that work underneath us are going to do the same thing.
Yeah.
And so that's a spiral of causing a problem that didn't exist.
Well, because we're contagious, and we can either infect or we can affect.
Correct.
And what you're describing is, it's important that we all recognize, first and foremost, everyone is a leader. Everyone does have the ability to influence those around them, regardless of your role, regardless of your tenure at your shop. But ultimately, how are you influencing? Are you infecting or are you affecting?
So if you take that a step farther, right, and we understand the 1%, right, and I have a mom that's yelling and screaming at me. She doesn't want a solution, and she's just going crazy, right? And we say we want to change the world. How you do is one interaction at a time. And it starts with the understanding of we don't know what their story is. She may have lost her dad 3 weeks ago and is dealing with that and is venting in an inappropriate way. It's not okay that she's doing it, but there's a reason why she's doing it. And I can either choose to fight back with her, or sometimes one of the most powerful things that you can do is to give somebody a smile that they don't deserve. And in that moment, you're setting an example for somebody else in your team that's how we do things. They may be crazy right now, and there's a line that can't be crossed, right? And as leaders, we have to decide that line, and we're the ones that hey, it's time to call the police, because I've had to do that hundreds and hundreds of times.
Hundreds. Wow.
30 years. 30
Yeah.
years, hundreds of thousands of people
Yeah.
per location. Oh,
Okay.
Yeah. I may or may not have had to choke a guest out once.
Oh,
Just
what else could be true, Jeremy? Jeez. Wow.
But you know, if we can teach everybody on our team to approach that, we don't know their story, but we know everybody's got one.
Yeah, that's so good.
And so like I give the example when I'm teaching the purpose of what we do, is that like we have a guest that came in one time, and I was a young manager, and she walks up to me, she's like, hey, thank you so much. I just want to tell you that your staff were great with my kids today. And I really appreciate it. And me being the young, dumb manager that I was, just went through the motions of, thank you so much for sharing that information with us. We truly appreciate your feedback. Like a robot, right? She stopped me in my tracks and she's like, no, you don't understand. I'm dying of cancer. And this is the last time I'm going to be able to do this with my kids.
Chills.
It was a sucker punch to the gut. Like I was straight out of the military and I thought I was tough and I was crying and whatever, right? In the moment, I was proud of my staff because they did the right thing, not knowing what was happening. But later on, I thought to myself, how much more powerful would it be if they did know? Now, obviously, there's no way that we can know everybody's story that comes into our business, right? But what we can do is we can teach our teams to make choices from the understanding that every guest that comes into our business, every employee that clocks in, they've all got a story. We just don't know what it is. We don't know what's going on in their life, and how we choose to interact in a situation is how we change the world one interaction at a time.
We know that everyone has a story, and I believe that if we truly knew everyone's story, each individual person that we come in contact with on a daily basis, if we knew their story, how could you not love them? I mean, like there's just so much that goes on, and I appreciate you sharing that, Jeremy. It's a reminder that in the space that we're in, and I'm speaking to the automotive repair space specifically, we have to remember that we have the opportunity to serve these guests, to take care of these guests, to love these guests. When we do that well, the transaction is a natural byproduct of exceptional standard-setting service. This is why we're putting on the white gloves, we're rolling out the red carpet for these guests each and every day. You're at the shop every single day, but for this guest, it might be their first and only time. And then, of course, they're going to come back. But we have to remember that. It's the white glove, red carpet service.
And it might be their last $100 that they're spending that they needed to feed their kids with, but they have to go to work.
Yeah.
And so are we looking, and not every story is as dramatic as that, but there's some that are way worse. Like I had another lady come up to me not long after that, and she's like, hey, thank you so much. These two kids here just needed a place where they could be a kid for the day. And I was like, it's kind of cryptic. I didn't know what she was talking about. And she went on to say, they were about 7 and 8 years old. And she went on to say that 2 weeks prior, both of their parents had been murdered in front of them.
Wow.
I was like, what the heck?
Yeah.
Like I was heartbroken because those kids were 7 and 8 years old, and they had no clue they were living in the darkest life of the month of their lives, right?
Yeah.
But they both had a smile on their face because of how my team chose to interact with them. And now some of you guys out there are thinking, well, that's family entertainment. What does that have to do? We're in a service world, right? And those stories, I guarantee you, those financial impact stories are innumerable when we're talking about. I remember, so we're in Arizona. I live in Arizona, right? How hot was it here the other day?
110. I mean, it was
Almost 115.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, God.
And
Yeah.
I went 2 summers here in Arizona. I had a beat up, shitty PT Cruiser that had no air conditioning. I had to go 2 summers because I couldn't afford to get it fixed. Now, I'm in a much better place now, much better place now. But the reality is, how many people exist like that where they, where sometimes it's really my guess, and I'm projecting because I don't know the industry very well, but just knowing leadership and knowing people, my guess is that you guys write up a list of 20 things that need to be fixed on somebody's car, and they can only pick 2 that are most critical to keep it running. And there's an opportunity there where judgment exists, or could exist, or shaming could exist.
Yeah.
Or you're just cheap and you think you're going to be able to repair. You know how many repairs I had to do on my own car because I couldn't afford to pay for the labor I knew that it would take to do it? I'll tell you, I will never buy a Volkswagen again. I had to take a freaking headlight off to change a battery. Like, it was ridiculous,
Okay.
right? But it's a service environment. And so, yes, we're in the business to make money and we have lots of ways to do it. But how you treat that one individual, you don't know who their circle is. If you have kindness and empathy and help them in a way that is understanding that today they may not be able to afford that $300 transaction, but you don't know who I am tomorrow, where I've got 6 cars that I'm bringing, or they tell that story to somebody else who's got, a fleet that could be coming to you for consistent. Those interactions matter, every single one. And sometimes we lose sight of that because we get lost in the systems and process. We get lost in the long days. We get lost in it takes a lot of work to be a good leader, and it takes money to invest in your teams with coaches and how to be better.
Yeah, that's so good. So Jeremy, I mean, we're gonna begin to wrap up the episode, but I want to share with the audience that we're just scratching the surface of what Jeremy Hoyum can bring to you and your team. I know you're not a social media guy, but I'll ask you, how can our audience get in touch with you?
My email address is jhoyum, Hoyum as in Mike, 82@gmail.com.
jhoyum82@gmail.com. I'm going to encourage everyone listening or watching, reach out to Jeremy. He is great at what he does. He is an incredible coach. Doesn't have to be in I'll say our space to be effective. Leadership is leadership, regardless
I
of
travel the
what's at.
nation too. I'm not just stuck in Arizona.
Okay. Folks, he's willing to travel. Well, Jeremy, hey, thank you so much for being here. It was an honor, man. Appreciate
Thank you so
having me.
much.
Or rather, appreciate you being here. And thank you for tuning in. Have a great day, everyone. Don't forget to smile today. Tell your loved ones how much they mean to you. I'm Josh Parnell, reminding you to keep leading well.